Over the last few years, the Tennessee Volunteers have done a tremendous job at producing big-time wide receivers. A couple years ago, we saw both Marquez Callaway and Jauan Jennings, as they both ended up having big careers at Tennessee and have gotten a chance in the NFL. After that, we saw both Javonte Payton, Velus Jones, and Josh Palmer, and then most recently, we saw the rise of Jalin Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. Every single one of those guys has either been on an NFL roster or will be soon, so now everyone is wondering, who is next up for the Volunteers? Currently, the Vols receiver room will be pretty young, but there will be two guys in particular who could end up becoming huge stars with quarterback Joe Milton. In today's video, I want to talk about one of them, as we're going to talk about their next great receiver, Ramel Keyton. Another guy I'm going to cover later on is Bru McCoy, but today we're going to focus on Keyton and how he can be the next great Vols receiver and how he got to this point. But before we get started, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now, let's get started and talk about Ramel Keyton. So going back in time, Ramel went to Marietta High School in Georgia and was an insane athlete and blossomed pretty early on in high school. Eventually, he got to play alongside a lot of elite talent, as he would quarterback Harrison Bailey, tight end Arik Gilbert, and wide receiver Ricky White. Bailey ended up playing at both Tennessee and UNLV, Gilbert played at LSU in Georgia and is now at Nebraska, and then Ricky White was a receiver for Michigan State. There was plenty of competition on that offense, but still, Keyton stood out. He'd blew up as a junior, as he caught 59 passes for 1,294 yards and 16 touchdowns. This gave him a lot of offers, and schools from all around the country wanted him. He was pretty much going to have his choice, but where was he going to go? Well, it really came down to two schools in the SEC, Tennessee and Auburn. He said, quote, "They're recruiting me the hardest, and they're close with my family. When it comes to Tennessee, the vibe with the new coaching staff, and it's different than it used to be." In May of 2018, Keyton would eventually pick Tennessee over Auburn, Florida, Penn State, and others, and even schools such as Alabama and Clemson also wanted Ramel. Scouts agreed this was a huge get for the Vols, as they said, quote, "Ramel Keyton is a good get for Tennessee. He's one of the top receivers in Georgia and one of the better wideouts in the country. I've watched this guy pretty close for years." In his first game of his senior year, he would absolutely show out, catching 14 passes for 191 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he was likely going to be a star in college, and Tennessee was jumping for joy and ready for him to get on campus. He ended up having a very historical campaign for Marietta, as he finished in the top 10 in receiving yards in Georgia high school football history with 3,353 yards. In terms of the kind of player he wasn't necessarily a burner, but he wasn't slow either. He had really good hands and was always able to make the catch and had great body control. He would have to adjust though. One scout said, quote, "He's a mismatch to the normal sized corner, and he has long arms and plays better than what he is, but he'll have to get stronger and become a better perimeter blocker on the edge. But he's a kid who will get better and improve, both as a route runner and with strength. I love his natural playmaking ability." According to 24/7 Sports, Keyton was a 4-star recruit, the number 17 wide receiver, and the 111th best player in the class of 2019. So how'd he end up doing at Tennessee? When Keyton would arrive at Tennessee, there was quite a bit of competition on the roster. He would be behind guys such as Jauan Jennings, Marquez Callaway, and Josh Palmer, and it wasn't far-fetched to say he wouldn't see the field much. He ended up finishing his freshman season with 4 catches for 104 yards, and while that wasn't outstanding, it was at least in the second half of the season, so he had some momentum going into 2020. With all those guys leaving for the NFL, Jeremy Pruitt came out and said, quote, "If I was a wide receiver in high school, Tennessee would be a great landing spot in the near future." He was alluding to the fact that Tennessee was going to be thin at wide receiver, so the path to early playing time would exist, and many expected Ramel to step up in a big way. In 2020, he would get a little bit better, and many were projecting him to break out, and having Harrison Bailey as a quarterback also was going to help. Unfortunately for Tennessee fans, Jarrett Guarantano would start most of the year, but Bailey would play in a couple of games and would even start against Florida. Unfortunately, after a slow start, Ramel would make a decision, as he decided to opt out of the rest of the year. Pruitt said, quote, "Ramel is not going to finish the year playing football. He's going to continue to focus on academics, and that'll be a great opportunity for him." Some may question his decision to quote-unquote quit the team, but I guess it ended up making sense in the long run, as it was sort of a weird year and a disastrous year, and he got to use his red shirt. In 2021, Keyton would play pretty sparingly, as he only ended up appearing in 3 games, but he would actually have a breakout performance in November. Against number 1 Georgia, he had a career-high 5 catches for 58 yards as he filled in for an injured Javonte Payton and got to be one of the better receivers on the team alongside Cedric Tillman. Going into 2022, Keyton was expected to be that 4th or 5th guy behind Cedric Tillman, Jalin Hyatt, and USC transfer Rue McCoy. Except a couple of things would happen, and Keyton got a chance to showcase his abilities finally. In week 1 against Ball State, he caught 4 catches for 57 yards, and then had a 57-yard touchdown in week 2 against Akron. In that same Akron game, Tillman would hurt his ankle, giving him a chance to have a lot more playing time. Against Florida, he caught 3 passes for 69 yards, and then would continue throughout the year to become that 2nd or 3rd option for Hendon Hooker. Against Alabama, he had 5 catches for 78 yards, including that crucial catch to set up the game-winning field goal. He had 2 touchdowns in a win over UT Martin, had a score in a win over Mizzou, and then helped them shut out Vanderbilt 56-0. He had a pretty good season, and in their bowl game against Clemson, we got to see the glimpse of the future. Against number 7 Clemson, he caught 4 passes for 76 yards and a touchdown, and with Joe Milton being the quarterback, it was a flash to what this fall could look like. He ended up finishing last season with 31 catches for 562 yards and 5 touchdowns, and with how we've seen Tennessee receivers develop over the last few years, it is not crazy to think that Keyton could be in for that next year. Josh Heupel's offense is great for receivers, they'll be losing their top 2 guys to the NFL, and he'll be by far the most experienced and most mature in that receiver room. It's only natural to think that Keyton is next up, and with Joe Milton at quarterback, Tennessee will be banking on Ramel to have a big season, and if they want to be competitive and near the top of the SEC East, they're going to need it. Speaking of Milton, he could become his favorite target, and those two have developed a bond. Let me give you an example of a story about just how great their connection is. Ramel said, quote, "I was practicing last year, and it was like a regular ball, and he actually split my hand open. Like right there, it was bleeding all the way to the base of my thumb. Like, I don't know what you call that part, but he split that part open. They had to tape it over, and I don't know what they had to do to it, but it took like a month for it to grow back." That is how ridiculously hard Joe Milton throws the football, and while at times that may not be the greatest thing in the world, Keyton was still able to catch it, and I think there's going to be a lot of passes between those two next year. If Keyton has a big year, he could become the next big Tennessee wide receiver draft prospect and show that he was not overrated coming out of high school. In terms of who's next up, we're likely going to see a heavy dose of Rue McCoy and Ramel Keyton, and then guys such as Squirrel White, Dante Thornton, Chaz Nimrod, and Caleb Webb are also expected to step up, but at this point, who knows who the heck will be out there at receiver for the Vols. But what do you guys think? If you're a Tennessee fan, what do you think of this year's receiver room? What do you think of Ramel Keyton? And what are your expectations for 2023? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.